today's panel of dragons and rare creatures, which a friend of mine says, that implies that dragons are not rare creatures. If you were paying attention to pop culture, you know they were not. So before we get started, I want to remind you of a few things that you're going to hear a lot of. Number one, silence the cell phones. Also, I can't have you guys standing along the wall because the last thing we want to do on the first day of Comic-Con is get shut down by the fire marshal. So, if there's seats, can you hold up their hands so that we have a pretty full panel? Thank you. So, I would like to welcome our panelists. First on my left is Jim. We expect a warm welcome to all of our guests. I'm Alyssa Wong.
Since he's late, we should heckle Jeff.
Should we come up with like some sort of like sound?
Hi, I'm Jenny Koch. I write the Alien Catherine Kitty Cat series for Dogwoods, which is part of Penguin Random House. I also write the Necropolis Enforcement Files series, which is why I'm here, book 2, Night Music, which is coming out really, really soon. I swear, everybody. Booths will feature dragons quite a lot, and I am in booth A1700 and 1702, and I have all the wares down there. And by the way, everybody appreciates when we buy our books. It makes us love it even more.
Hi, I'm Alyssa Wong. I'm a short fiction writer, and my first story, The Fisher Queen, was about mermaids and was nominated for a Nebula Award. And I just took home the Nebula Award for short fiction this year. So, yay!
Welcome. I'm Todd Lockwood. I've been illustrating for a long time publicly, but I've been writing privately just as long, or actually longer. This is my first novel just out, The Summer Dragon, and it is also packed full of dragons. So they're not rare creatures in the world. I'm not sure where else I'll be this weekend other than across the bay in the topic. I hope to see some of you also.
I'm Christina Henry, and I'm the author of the Black Wings Urban Fantasy series, which is a 7-book series about Madeline Black and her popcorn-eating gargoyle Weasel. And I'm also the author of Alice and the sequel Red Queen, which is a very, 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 I'm not sure if very sort of dark interpretation of the Alice Wonderland story. It's very
I'm Aprilynne Pike, and I am the author of the Wing series, which is about fairies, the Urban series, which is about First Gods, the Charlotte Western Chronicles, which is about oracles. And then I have a new series coming out. But it does have a smart house that is the house of the dragons. Technology and are kind of there to me. I don't know how it works.
We're pointing at seats because we can't have anybody standing on the walls. So there's seats up there, there's seats over here. Again, you've got a seat next to you right on.
Well, I'm going to start with one question, and then we'll obviously open it up. Can you tell me what mythical creature is? I think that encompasses it all. First intrigued you.
Aliens that look like models. Advertising in the Jenny Koch land.
It's got to be dragons for me. One of my earliest childhood memories was of Maleficent turning into the dragon. I've seen through the windshield of the family car. I was driving. It was like it was out there. It was outside the car. One of my oldest memories. I was maybe 3.
I'm not sure if I remember which mythical creature in the treatment. I do remember one of the first fancy books I read was Water Shut Down. So I guess part of that is with their own mythology. With a rare creature.
I have always loved fairies, and so even though I wrote several books before I actually got published, it's to me unsurprising that I got published with my fairy book because there was so much passion there.
There's a Filipino monster called the Aswang, and she looks like a beautiful lady in the daytime, and at night she goes and stands in like a banana grove and detaches from the hips up and flies around and makes babies. So
Wait, can you guys find seats?
that was my favorite monster.
Paws are up for open chairs again, so everybody please go to them. Thank you, so.
So we have 5 pretty cool authors up here. Let's have some questions.
The question was, what is our favorite mythical creature of all time, no matter what? I'm going to go with vampires, because you can do so much with them. They've been around so long, and they just remain ever, ever so cool.
I have to go with dragons.
Todd's staying on point for the panel.
But it's true.
For like my first urban fantasy series, I chose a gargoyle as my main character's sidekick, and there was a reason for that, because I just think that there's something really fun about a creature that could turn to stone, and in my series he's pocket sized, so I just really like the idea of carrying around your sidekick.
I'm boring too. I'm still going with fairies. They're my first love, always and forever.
I mean, how could I not go with Aswang? Like that's. But I mean,
I'm thinking about changing my mind. Seriously.
right? Like, I mean, anything that can change into something else by day and by night, I think it's so cool.
I'd like to twist that question a little bit and ask, what was the first book or movie monster that actually scared you? And I know which one it was for me. It was the Banshee, Every Gilman. I love monster movies. They never really scared me, but she scared me.
I'm the biggest fan on the planet, even though I write horror. I'm afraid of everything. But the image that sticks with me the most, I grew up in Ventura, which is a beach city on our north of Los Angeles in California, and Santa Barbara's 30 minutes north of Ventura. And so we would get all the art stuff from, because Ventura had absolutely no art at all. But Santa Barbara was a lovely cultural city, and they were doing a showing of the art house films of Nosferatu. And there's that image, and I literally would have to take the trash out at night, like backed up against the wall. Because I knew that thing was there. So that which is probably why vampires are still in there.
I think movie monsters have never actually scared me, but what did scare me was the Goosebumps covers. Oh my gosh, they're so scary. There's one about like a mask that's 16 days, and there's the cover is like the person trying to pull the mask off and it's all stretchy. And it was no.
I'm with Jenny. I'm a total wimp, and I remember I couldn't have been more than about 7 or 8 when I first went to go see Who Framed Roger Rabbit and the Red-Eyed Man and the Girl. Like seriously, I loved the rest of the movie. I would love to watch that movie and just pause it there and be like, I'll imagine the rest. Oh, I was terrified. Like every time I took a bath for like the next 2 years, I was just like, it's gonna come up the drain.
I don't know if I remember a creature scaring me, but I do remember being like 10 years old and going to a friend's house to sleep over, where like their mother didn't really monitor what they watched. And we watched Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one. And I don't think that 10-year-olds should watch Nightmare on Elm Street. So my name
plaintiffs on either side of
Oh my God.
That person needs to be removed.
I'm also a win, but I'll shut you down.
This is supposed to be the happy dragons in Kansas City. What are you people doing?
Good question.
There are so many dragons in stories and movies. What is your favorite dragon's favorite meal?
Do you mean the ones we've written or the ones we've seen?
Out of all of the stories and dragons that you've read about or written, what is your favorite dragon's favorite meal?
That's a tough one. I sort of like when the dragon in Shrek eats the queen. It was short and sweet. You know, they didn't write that come up and out much. Just
So the favorite meal is this.
Did anyone read the Dealing with Dragons series?
Oh!
Yeah! Favorite dragon is Kazul from the King of the Dragons, Lady King of the Dragons, and her favorite meal is Cherry Jubilee.
I don't remember what Pete's dragon liked to eat. Sorry. But whatever he liked to eat would be my favorite thing. I loved Pete's dragon. He was just a total goofball. It wasn't scary at all.
The first book I remember reading that had dragon in it was Hero and the Crown by Robert McKinley. And I don't think the dragons actually get a chance to eat anybody in that book. But I always loved that book because the main character was a princess who fought dragons. So
I really loved the movie Dragonheart, and so I guess the dude that knight that tried to kill him, that he spat out of the cave, was probably Tom Hanks. I love him.
How does your dragons and their
Me.
Repeat the question.
Oh, sorry.
The question is, how do your dragons differ from pop culture dragons, such as Lord of the Rings?
or fairies.
I had a lot of fun with mine, and I tell people I never had another original idea in my life. I would be proud of this one. I came up with the idea that fairies have always been associated with plants, but I made them where they are actually sentient plants. They are basically the equivalent in the animal kingdom as they're in the plant kingdom as we are in the animal kingdom. We have like the missing link, and there's this big jump between apes and humans and their reasoning skills and all that. And so then there's all the plants over here, and then there's this big gap, and there's the fairies, and they're magical and sentient and can move and everything. But so my character like photosynthesizes, and she has to get nutrition the same way that plants do. And so I had to do a ton of research on botany in order to figure out how a moving plant could like live in the human world. And basically all the things that she does, I learned from botany books or from how my uncle raises Christmas trees.
So I'm not sure I want to follow you after that. I don't actually have any dragons in my books. I do have pocket-sized gargoyle.
I think that's pretty cool.
He eats junk food. Basically, he's mean. Probably like the purest distillation of my personality is in Weasel. So he eats junk food. His favorite movie is Jaws. Yeah, he's basically mean.
The dragons in my book are actually animals, and they're raised by my heroine's family and sold to the military as war machines. They don't breathe fire, but they're highly intelligent, and I haven't read anything exactly like them, but I've been avoiding reading dragon books for a while. Going across the street.
I did something similar with my short story, The Fisher Queen. It's about mermaids, but it's actually about mermaid fishing. So the idea is that mermaids are not actually, half human, half fish. they're just fish, like really, really big fish that are like semi-sentient and look like weirdly, uncannily like people, sort of, sometimes. So there's this question of whether or not they are, like, how human are they? And yeah, I don't know, it's fun. You can eat them, they're tasty.
I've just made plans to not go to her house for dinner. Sure, it's a delicious meal. Before I answer, raise the paws again. We have to have you guys sitting, so everybody, every hand has a chair next to it. See, there's just tons of seats. It just doesn't look like them. And for the new people that just walked in, the hands up indicate seats. We have to have you sitting, so please come make new friends and sit down next to people that have their paws in the air. Or those 3 seats that were just vacated by people fleeing because they just don't want to know what makes my stuff different. I've marked them. Their days shall be short. So what makes mine different is the thing that bothers me and has always bothered me about most of our undead, vampires, werewolves, zombies, all of these things that come out of religion, and we just remove the religion from them. And I'm not like, I'm spiritual but I'm not deeply religious, but the origin for all of these was religion. These are aspects of something a religion is trying to tell us, the column from Judaism and so forth. So I wanted to put that back in, and where it's not, if you're an undead creature, you're not instantly evil. You choose whether you side with the gods and monsters or you side with the prince of darkness. And every plane of existence has this choice, and you can be a hell demon or an altar demon. You can be, you're a vampire who's given your soul to the gods and monsters. You're fighting on the side of right. So that is where I think I'm extremely different from most of what's out there, because everybody has removed the religious aspect, and mine is front and center because this is the fight. We're averting Armageddon every book. That's what you got to do when you're fighting the big fight.
Recently, a lot of creatures, especially dragons, have started being more intelligent and talking. Do you prefer your creatures super intelligent and speaking with the hero, or do you prefer them more animalistic?
I think the only thing he said recently, dragons have been more talky and intelligent. I would argue that it's not recently, it's cyclical. They started out as brilliantly intelligent and almost superior to humans in every way. So you have all aspects of that. I think we turned them into, the mindless killing machine, the bear, if you will, instead of a bear, it's a dragon. I like whatever dragon serves the story I want to tell. Some dragons need to be chatty and talky. The dragons that are coming out in Night Music are all very hyper intelligent, and they're all talking and on the fight. But there's other times where it's really cool to have the great big dragon dog.
My dragons do speak, but they have a language of their own, and they can, to a very limited degree, learn human words because they have to interact. But my girl thinks she could maybe figure out what the dragons are saying. Their language is completely different from ours because they don't think like we do. They don't take in information about the world the same way we do. But I do also have high dragons in this book, which are very rare and mystical, practically considered gods. The summer dragon is one of those, and they're quite a bit more intelligent. But if you don't interact with but one, and it would be a spoiler to go any farther.
I think that, for me, it just depends on the context of the story. Obviously in some books it makes more sense for the creature to be a creature. Something that is maybe an antagonist to humans. And sometimes it makes more sense for them to be a companion or otherwise speaking. I just think it depends on the context of the story. This is not really an answer. But I like them in both contexts.
Totally agree. I really think that it depends on the story. All of my magical creatures in my book so far have, most of them, classes, humans, and all of that. But certainly if they fit the story, I would really want to.
I mean, I agree. Whatever Aprilynne said, it depends on the story, and I also think, whatever the creature is, I want it to be very different from anything that we already have, in whatever way. And if it's an intelligent creature, like an intelligent dragon, that talks, I want that dragon to not just be like a human person who is large with scales and can breathe fire.
I really want dragons to be real, so I thought a lot about the biology and the ecology and, you know, what would it take to make these things actually function despite the limitations of size and atmosphere. And
You said about the... You said at the beginning. Oh, what you said about wanting the dragons to be their own creatures rather than just people with scales, sort of like the parallel of having, like, Up with the talking dogs. The dog doesn't say what a human would say. The dog says, "Hi, I've only just met you and I love you. Squirrel!"
can I smell your butt?
Question, small person with a cool hat.
The question is, do we believe in dragons? I believe in everything. Dragons in particular, yes.
Got one at the zoo.
Absolutely.
Yup.
Yes. I believe in a lot of possibilities.
They will eat you.
Mine won't err on the side of gods and monsters. They'll protect you. Obviously, mine are nicer than hers. She looks so much sweeter, doesn't she?
You're all invited to dinner.
This one.
Any book they want, any book at all. If it was out there, any and every book. I write in a cinematic style, so literally any book of mine could be done. It's whether they could be done for a special effects budget that would be something that Hollywood would not like faint and go away from.
That is the one drawback of a book full of dragons.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I'd like to think about that. Would you be okay with an animated feature then?
Oh yeah, but animation is also really expensive time and painstaking and time. But yeah, I love animation.
Me too.
Yes.
I would love, like, an anime style movie of one of my books.
Oh, yeah.
Just roll over and die.
Yeah. That's bucket list.
Yes.
When people are like, oh, I already got this, I'm like, no, graphic novel, anime movie, Hollywood blockbuster. That's my bucket list.
Anything.
Yeah,
But then
but
that's the top. I would love that.
Yeah.
Do you feel that animation could better serve what you had in mind as a vision?
I think in a lot of ways you can with a really good, studio and really good artists, because there are a lot of things that translate much better into a drawing than even with our advanced CGI. They have kind of this little bit of a fakeness look to them sometimes, and so I think that with anime, where it's not real, it is animation, you get to really, your mind will accept so much more in an animation style.
I also think that with all of the politics in Hollywood and casting and race, I personally would probably rather have something animated with a small studio that's willing to take chances.
sorry, aside from what? Aside from what? Oh, aside from hers, aside from that really creepy. What's the weirdest, creepiest thing we've considered using? I went on the creepy crawly hunt for night music, and so I'm using them in that book. Like, humanity has come up with some scary stuff. We have frightening imaginations all over the world. Everybody's got something just as horrible as what they have in the Philippines. It's like, everybody can be number one with a bullet on the horror because we've got it. So I think the Blemmies? I think the Blemmies have a mouth, the face and the mouth where the stomach should be, and I think they're the ones that tickle you to death, which is a horrible way to die. So, horrible way.
scary stuff on my own though, so I don't know that there's like one creature out there that is waiting for me to tell their story, probably because I won't research to find it.
I got nothing. This is the one book I wrote, and it's all dragons. There's a super creepy critter in the back half of it, but again, I don't want to spoil it.
I think that's the thing for read the book.
Please.
In the back, the gentleman in the science uniform from Star Trek. You're old school, we like it.
My question relates, there are a lot of different authors that have tackled dragons and were creatures and so forth, from E.E. Knight and his excellent series of books to Tolkien and Smaug and the other ones in that. What authors do you feel have most influenced your fantasy creatures?
Even though I've been compared to the Pern stories with this book, I haven't ever actually read them. The only dragon I can think of having read actually was Smaug. But then I worked with D&D dragons a lot over the last few years. And these aren't D&D dragons. Not specifically avoiding them, but I grew up in science fiction, so that kind of feeds the idea again that I wanted them to be real. I like dragons, but I want them to be believable. Oh, they just fly because they can. Because.
For me, it's Terry Pratchett's Discworld series.
I have two series that I find really inspiring that are from completely, if I could stretch my arms longer, they would, completely opposite ends of the spectrum, and that is Twilight and The Wheel of Time.
Animorphs.
I started writing when I was 12 because of Tolkien, but I think probably like the single most influential writer, like the way that I write, is probably Robin McKinley. I really just love her writing.
And then in front. The question was, what is your favorite type of dragon?
Whatever dragon I'm writing right now.
I have a fondness for little bitty dragons, which is probably why I'm like, oh, I like, baby dragons because, they grow bigger after that, but at least they're small when they're little, and then also dragons that just stay small. Little dragons. Take around with you, I think that would be awesome.
Sort of like large dog size, but like huggable, long aquatic dragons that eat lots of fish. It's my dream dragon. I like fish. Fish is my favorite food.
I have baby dragons in here, and they also like fish, chicken, beef, melons.
Is this where it starts the circle of life?
I don't know that I have a favorite type. Probably I prefer the one that doesn't set me on fire.
I like a dragon I can ride.
Right here. Yeah.
What advice do you have?
Yeah. It's actually easier if you stand.
What advice do you have for aspiring authors?
Never give up, never surrender.
Write the things that you want to write, not the things that you think other people want you to write.
Absolutely. Yeah. You are your own first. You were your first audience. Keep being your play to yourself.
So seconded, thirded, and probably fourth. Find something that you're really, really passionate about, that you really love, because it will show. You won't be able to point and say, this is where I could tell the author didn't really care about this book, but you'll be able to tell. You really, really love your book. Also, the editing process is very long, and you will get so tired of this book, even if you love it, and if you don't love it, you will hate it on like round 2.
I would say read a lot, and don't just read in the genre that you want to write in, and don't just read in the genre that you normally read in. Like, read outside your boundaries, because you learn a lot from all kinds of writers.
Very true. In art and writing both, I drew on pretty much everything. As a kid, my favorite thing to do was, apart from drawing and writing, was to open the encyclopedia and just start reading stuff. I like science classes and biology.
You might want to tell people what encyclopedias are.
It's like Google.
I think we're sensing a trend.
I actually did explain to my 10-year-old 2 days ago what encyclopedia was. He was like, so there were a lot of them?
So many.
Stand up.
So we sort of kind of what you guys' favorite creatures are, but what are your least favorite creatures? Like, which ones do you kind of cringe at or just don't really like as much?
I will confess I am not a zombie girl. I want my creatures to be sexy and zombies to be.
Whoever shouted it out, thank you for reading my mind. I'm sick of anything that's done badly and lazily, and that's easy to spot when somebody is just copying what somebody else did and they haven't brought anything new. I'm sick of that. But I think any creature can be interesting, any creature can be fascinating, as long as you're writing it with your final passion. Not, I'm going to read Todd's book and then I'm going to write a dragon book just like it. That's not going to be very good. I'm going to be not interested in that book. But you read Todd's book and go, oh my gosh, he's giving me so many ideas. I'm going to go make my own dragons and their own world, and it's going to be so exciting. That's an interesting thing. So for me, it's down to, did you do it well, or did you just do it badly? And bad is bad no matter what it is, and new and different is almost always good.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's probably why I don't really, I'm not really a fan of selfie stories, because they tend to follow the same patterns over and over. Oh, this beautiful lady, oh, I have her seal skin, I'm going to hide the seal skin. She finds it, oh no, she goes back to the sea, now I am sad. Like, tell me that's not like most selfie stories. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I want to see a selfie story that, I want to see many selfie stories. I still want selfie stories that, like, deviate from those paths and that are very uniquely that person. That's what I want.
Actually, if you guys can find seats, I can have people standing on the wall.
Yeah, raise hands, we've got seats.
There's seats over here, folks. Right over here.
No one wants to sit too close to us.
Yeah, I mean, no one's coming to the front with any kind of hurt.
It's like Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
The gentleman in the second row had a question.
I was wondering if you guys had any opinions on the sealy and unsealy quartz.
Oh, okay, so our opinions on the sealy and unsealy quartz, I think if you're writing in that, that's awesome. I don't have an opinion because it's like, I think like Shauna McGuire does them amazingly, and other people probably do as well. But I think, again, if you're reading in it, read everybody and see who you like the best. If you're writing in it, make it yours. You're allowed to change things. I know people like to complain about Stephanie Meyer and their vampire sparkle, but that was different. Okay? That was new and that was different, and that made it all hers. So it made it way more interesting than just, here's another vampire, ooh, So if you're writing it, make it yours. Nothing is overdone if you bring a new voice to it.
I have opinions. No, I really don't, but actually I think that mostly mirror what you say. You want to make it your own because the people who told a lot of the stories about the sealy and unsealy court, well, those have been told. And so fight the urge to just tell them over again. Having written about fairies, when I did the sealy and the unsealy court, the unsealy wasn't really a court like the fairies are sealy, and essentially the ones who get cast out and put into jail are the jail fairies are the unsealy court, and they're completely like under filled story of the good people and the bad people who have wings. And you don't want it to be that simple.
I think that no matter what story you're in, is to find your voice. Don't let it be someone else's voice, let it be yours.
Science officer, once again, please.
Kind of going off the previous question, there are a lot of tropes when it comes to this kind of fiction. Like there's the dragon heart trope where you have the destined warrior with the destined dragon. You have the were trope where you have the random guy gets bit and has to discover that he's a were creature and deal with it and is eventually destroyed. So what kind of processes do you personally go through to kind of break yourself out of those common ideas that have been recycled for ages?
Well, most of what I write tends to be funny, so that just pretty much breaks it right there. If you have to find a way to find humor in on everything, you're literally forced out of most of the tropes because you've got to make them funny instead of deadly serious. So that's fine. I embrace tropes, and I'll find a way to change it. It's going to be mine by the time I've written the character.
And Jim Thompson, who's one of my favorite writers of all time, famously said that there was only one plot. Things are not what they seem. And I think that's probably true. So I don't think that, I think that probably there are no quote-unquote original ideas left. There's only you, the writer, who's presumably an original person. Your influences, your thoughts, things you've read, the ideas that you have, and what you do with them when you write them, that's what makes it fresh. It's not necessarily that, I think at this point, that someone can come up with a wholly 100% influenced by nothing original idea. So as long as you're aware of what's come before you, I think as long as you make it your own, that's fine.
I really like that. There's only one plot. It's not what it seems. I've never remembered it.
If I could, the best way I've heard it described, a friend of mine who has been an animator for many, many years said that in reference to the tropes that are found in animation, but this works for just about any other genre, that there are only 200 different types of Legos. But how you build those Legos has an infinite number of combinations.
Well, and specifically when I'm dealing with tropes, I like to, when I'm just barely starting to build my plot, take the trope and then say, what if that's not the case? I always kind of, and I had people sometimes get genuinely mad about this. My first book is called Wings, which is kind of an ironic title because my fairies do not have wings. And then, I have a book about a ghost who, the trope is the ghost has to find someone who can help them finish their unfinished business and then they can move on. And so I said, well, what if you finish your unfinished business and nothing happens? With my oracles, the oracle is supposed to see the future and very carefully and cryptically give you little hints about it. And so I have an oracle who, even though she sees the future, she is supposed to block herself from even seeing the future. And certainly she's not supposed to tell anyone about it. She's not supposed to change anything. She's not supposed to do anything. Her entire focus of energy is in not having her gift at all. And so if you take whatever the trope is and you specifically say, what if that isn't true at all? That's often how I start building a story, is trying to break those tropes. And you're always going to run into other ones. Like you said, there's nothing, you can't write a book that isn't inspired somewhat by something. But if you can take the main trope and kind of break it, you stumble upon something interesting. And it may take you somewhere you never actually intended, but breaking tropes is always fun.
Yeah, breaking them and reassembling them. I think figuring out. So I wrote that mermaid story actually as a wedding present for someone. Because she had helped me out, and I was like, I'm going to write you a story based on your favorite fairy tale. What is your favorite fairy tale? She's like, The Little Mermaid. And I was like, mermaids. I was like, I detest mermaids. There's something interesting about them. And so I spent a year and a half thinking about mermaids. I was just like, what do I do? And it took me a year and a half and 3 different stories that I wrote, which didn't have mermaids. I tried really hard, but it took that long to figure out what about the stories that I've heard and read about mermaids to like the Mermaid Tree. There's another one. It's really good. What were the pieces of those stories that I really liked? What were the pieces that really worked for me? Why did they work for me? And what is it about the creature itself that really works for me? So for me, I was watching River Monsters. And I was like, oh, fish, I love fish. And so that was what worked for me. And I think similarly, you have to find the things that work for you.
Hopefully it was a long engagement.
It was pretty long. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be a wedding present. It's just that it ended up being a wedding present because it took so long. They're not any good. Yeah, give me like another 2 years, maybe one.
Once you guys have your stories written, with the characterization, you guys also feel like you have to decide the character, like you feel you fulfill, and then you have to decide like that
So the question is, do we always make sure we have, the hero, the good guy, the villain, the comic relief? Are we that black and white? For me, my characters get to tell me what they're doing and what they're going to do and who they're going to be. So I have a lot of characters who really desperately enjoy being comic relief. In part because they know it gets them screen time. And so like, I'm going to be funny right now, you can't cut that. The boring people you'll cut, but not the funny ones. Literally, the boring people die, the funny ones get to live. We know how you work. So it really, they self-identify. But ultimately, I mean, when you're doing storytelling, there are archetypes, and you end up with the archetypes in there. And they're in there because everybody likes them. Everyone wants the jester, everyone wants the hero, everyone wants whoever needs to be rescued. We need the villain, you need your antagonist. So for me, they just show up when they want to.
I always start with one person and try to figure out what they want. What someone wants tells you a lot about a character. And once you know what they want, then I'm like, okay, go get it. Haha, just kidding. Like, here comes another person who also has to, want what they want, and very genuinely, very truly, but in a way that obstructs the character. And so it's just a lot of like, I'm gonna go here. It's like soccer. Kind of like soccer. I mean, maybe not actually like soccer, but the idea that you're constantly trying to drive that ball into the goal, and there are a bunch of people trying to stop you, and that's how my plots happen.
I tend to trust my instincts to a degree. It's like, what's missing? I have a loose outline to write to, but it's time for some action, or it's time for something fun, and then you see what I can come up with. And then what you were just saying, it's nice to have a character who wants something, but what they think they want is really symbolic of what they really want, which they're suppressing or possibly even unaware of. The thing they could get that would make them appreciate it, well, maybe what they really want is to be appreciated, not the thing.
I've written 9 books, I'm now writing my 10th book, and I've never plotted any of them. So
I hate you.
it's just, honestly, it has more to do with, I said I'm a lazy writer, it's true. I write by hand and I write chronologically, so I just sort of let it unfold. So I don't ever really think in a meaningful way about the things that you were mentioning, like comic relief might happen, or it might not. I always start with like just one little idea and I just kind of see what happens, and almost always my books are never what I intended them to be. So I really, it's just because I don't have like a process. I just kind of write the book and then I type it up and I send it to my editor so I don't have to look at it anymore.
I am a plotter, but I feel like for me, character falls into place that way. And I'm never looking for like a label for the people. Even when I have, I know that this is the protagonist and this is the antagonist, I still want, there's a saying that gets thrown around all the time, the villain is the hero of his own story. I want him to have, these redeeming characteristics. I want his reasons for whatever he's doing that's bad to be justified. So even though the roles of antagonist and protagonist are going to be pretty firm, all of the rest of the labels, if I find my characters falling into their labels and falling into black and white, I know I'm doing something wrong. And I need to let things kind of fall more naturally, because we all play the villain sometimes. We all play the hero sometimes. We all play the comic relief sometimes. Sometimes we're the downer. Sometimes we're the person who's mad and starts a fight, whatever it is. And I want my characters to be very human, and I don't mean biologically. I want them to feel very real and very natural. And so, the black and white thing tells me I'm doing it wrong.
In the back with the hat, can you stand up?
How do you develop magic systems?
How do we develop magic systems? I'm linear too, so that does actually require a certain amount of work, because you have to know what you're doing. So I'll plot it out. What causes most pain to everybody who works with me is most of it's in my head. And for me, literally, if I write everything down and I know what's happening, I have no more interest in you never going to see the story. Oh, I know how they did it. We're done. Hey, where's the story? Oh, here's your outline. That's all you get. Enjoy publishing that. It's scintillating. So I want, one of the things, I don't have a strong way, but one of the things I always want to do is I always want to make sure that there is a way for the bad guys to circumvent the good guys so that the good guys aren't too strong. That's the biggest problem with Superman. You have to throw Doomsday at him to kill him, and it's just, So I've thrown things in my main series, my Alien series, I've thrown things in that have debilitated my good guys' abilities so that they are less super, and the bad guys get to have shots at winning. So for me, it's more making sure that I don't betray what I need to have happen, and also make sure somewhere in there I'm built in a way to make the good guys weaker when I need them to be.
Really going off of that, whenever I'm developing a magic system for my good guys, I always want there to be a big enough drawback that at least, a time or two in the book, if not more, they'll wish that they didn't have that magical ability. If there are enough consequences to your magical ability that you seriously are like, I kind of wish I didn't have this, you're probably headed in the right direction, because it shouldn't just be like, bing, I have a magic wand, I can do anything I want. That's not interesting. What's interesting is taking a hold of your destiny and seeing the positives and the negatives and deciding to own it anyway.
I think the way I think about magic and magic systems is definitely influenced by Tamara Pierce's books. Yeah, love Tamara Pierce. But it's sort of a very organic, very natural approach to magic systems. And also, we were talking about like the drawbacks. I like magic that is, that comes naturally, but is very unpredictable in the way that I feel like a lot of the way our brains work and the way our bodies work, ostensibly we know how they work, but there's still those things we don't necessarily know about them, and sometimes they throw weird stuff at us. I don't know. I like very natural but very strange magic systems.
I kind of avoided magic systems just because I have a long association with D&D. I just didn't want to write a D&D book. So the magic in this book is very, very subtle, low-key. It's written in the skin in the form of tattoos. So its effects are not, spectacular and sudden. They're low-key and sort of ongoing.
In my first series, in the Black Wings series, I could really develop a magic system. So I wrote the first book the way I write all my books chronologically, and I made it up as I went along, and then later I realized I was stuck with what I made up without actually thinking about it. So then I spent 6 books thinking, I really wish I hadn't done that. I wasn't really thinking about rules, I was just kind of doing it. And then I was kind of stuck with it when I continued to do it. I was like, oh, I really wish I hadn't done this or that, because now it's annoying. I have to write around it. So my advice would probably be, if you want to develop a magic system, really develop it. Don't just make it up as you go along and then be stuck with what you made up, like happened to some other writer.
Whatever revisions are needed, you can always fix it in post.
But not if the book's already published.
Yeah, that's true. It's a little too post.
You're right. I do. We avoid reading parts of our books, reviews of our books, or anything about our books after they've been published. My viewpoint is when I'm rereading, because you're rereading a lot and editing, if I don't like it, it gets cut. Because if I'm skimming it, why should you read it? I wish I could manage not to read reviews. I really, I'm not strong enough. I read reviews, and thank you, anyone who's given me 1 star. You made me better. And I've learned voodoo.
I also read reviews, and because because I like pain in my life. But you know what? As soon as when things are published, I can't read them anymore. I get too embarrassed. I'm just like, oh no, no, never again. But I mean, in a year or two, then I can read it.
I'm writing book 14 of my main series. You have to go back and reread occasionally too. You know, remember, oh yeah, that's what happened.
I think the stakes are a little bit smaller in short stories. But yeah, no, I can see.
Time is very key. I really do not like when the finished book comes. I know some authors who like the finished book and read it, and I'm like, but I'm doing a continuation of a book a series that ended 40 years ago, and I went back and reread the series in preparation for writing it again, because when you have a series, you have to reread it. And it was, the book isn't a new release, nobody's worrying about sales numbers, there was no pressure. And so it was kind of nice to reread it after 4 years. I was like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, oh, what happened? I forgot this plot twist. What happened?
I reread the books, I'm like, wow, this chick's pretty good. I have no idea what's going on. I don't remember the words. It's like, well, I remember that I wrote that to happen, but it's like all the words strung together. It was like a brand new book. It was very
But the editing process was so fractured and insane at the end that I had to go back and read it to see how it turned out. I've never shied away from critique, so I view even a bad review as a form of critique. If I see something consistent popping up, then I'm going to take note of it. I've had really good reviews so far. I have my favorite review on my phone.
I don't reread my books for a couple reasons. First, because you know how when you hear your own voice on an answering machine, it's like super annoying. Like, do I really sound like that? That's how I feel when I read my books. Like, do I really sound like that? Also, because the process of writing the book takes so long. And by the time you write it and you hand it in, it goes through the editing process and the galleys and it's finally printed. It takes at least a year, sometimes longer. So sometimes it's like looking into a time capsule. Like, it's a literally different person who wrote that book, a person that I do not know. So, no, I've never reread. And I tried, when my first book came out, I read reviews and then I realized it was very unhealthy. So, the good ones aren't good for you, and the bad ones aren't either, because nobody reviews your book. They review their experience of the book. It's not the same thing. So I just feel like the only person I can make happy is myself. So I do.
We have time for one more quick question.
Kind of curious, if you're doing research for your books, how much do you stick to the source material, and how much do you
The question is on research, how much do we stick with the source material, how much do you deviate? I'm writing fiction, I don't do anything that sounds like it's from the source material. But research is great. It's also a slippery slope because you can spend 3 hours researching because it's really interesting. But like in book 2 of my alien series, The Alien Tango, there's an alligator on the cover. And the reason there's an alligator on the cover is in my research on the Kennedy Space Center, I discovered they have a gigantic alligator preserve that they're really, really, really proud of. And as things progressed, all of a sudden my hearing goes, we need to go get me some gators. It's like, what? But it worked, it was great. The gators are wonderful. So research is great, but if you're writing fiction, it should never sound like your source material.
I research mythos for the specific purpose of twisting it into something unrecognizable.
Exactly.
But I like being able to do a lot of research, and I do, if I have the time, like to disappear into the hole of Wikipedia links. And you end up somewhere where you not even know where you started out. But I feel like the more I know about the mythos that I'm writing about, the traditional mythos, the better I can twist it.
You know, Wikipedia is your encyclopedia. Good place to get lost. I research meteorology just to understand cloud systems and weather and stuff because I'm flying in it a lot. But it's something that people would know, would need to know. That kind of thing would be accurate.
Yeah, I like magic and creatures that are very scientifically sound and biologically sound, so research is super important to me. But again, it's like, it depends what you're writing. I'm not writing a science report on dragons.
I don't really research, but I'll tell you that if it is accurate, somebody will send you an email about it.
Isn't social media awesome?
The short story that I just won the Mythical for, like, this one person messaged me and was like, hey, so, or no, they tweeted something and then they tagged me at the end. They were like, I bet this author has never been in this kind of card because that's not how it works. And I was like, I'm sorry, I've never been in that fancy card.
Sometimes even when you do have your facts straight, somebody will still email you and tell you you're wrong.
Usually more than one somebody.
Or at least, yeah.
They're very healthy.
I always find writers to be brave. I think writers are very brave because when you put your art out there for all the world to see, people are judging. So I find people that put themselves out artistically to be very brave.
Well, we love you.
Well,
Favorite moderator right here. Hi, Mark.
First off, it's really, really hot, so please stay hydrated. Secondly, I'd like to thank our panel today, and I'm going to kind of go through who's on conquest. Who's got conquest? Wow.
That's the only way I know where I'm going.
It's true. So I'm going to list off where they're going to be in the signing lounge. Jeannie's going to also talk about where she's going to be. So Alyssa is, I'm actually moderating again tomorrow for Alyssa and Christina on heroines and tropes. So that should be a lot of fun. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So Alyssa's going to be in the signing lounge today at 6 and tomorrow at 1:30.